What's up, everybody? It's In Those Jeans Reacts. I'm Jordan.
I'm Zach.
It's Saturday, so we're back with our sports podcast that we just started. This is episode 2. And as we mentioned on the last one, we are talking point guards. Today, we're going to talk about our top 5 point guards in the NBA right now, and we want to talk about our top 5 point guards of all time. And I've been going through all of these over and over and over, and I'm having so much trouble. And currently in the NBA, I feel like the point guard
Is the most stacked
position, yeah, it's definitely the most stacked. So that's why I'm having so much trouble. In all-time list, like my top 3 are the same, but my 4 and 5 I'm having trouble with. So we have not looked at each other's list. I wanted it to be brand new to both of us. And to tell you the truth, I might hear something on his list and I might end up changing my mind. He might hear something on my list and he might change his mind. So, and this is just 100% our opinion. I don't care what the experts say. This is just 2 people that watch basketball a lot, and this is just our opinion. And I'm a lot older than he is, so
I'm not gonna know a lot of the all-time things. That is based off of what I've heard and what I've stat-wise, I guess.
And when I was looking at some of the experts, you had asked me about Jerry West. He is considered a point guard. Some people have him as a combo guard.
He is.
Like, I meant to tell you that earlier before you made your list, but yeah, some people consider, because they say he's the best combo guard, so I guess he can be considered point guard or shooting guard. But so I think what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna read off my list. He's gonna read off his list, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll mention other names that could be in the list. But I think first we should do current. All right, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right, so my number 1 point guard is Luka.
Or we can just alternate. Like
Okay.
you say you want. Okay. My number 1's Luka too.
All right, my number 2 may be a surprise, but I got Shy.
I got shot too. I had an argument to put him number 1 just because he's my favorite player in the league right now, but he's my number 2.
My number 3, even though he's getting old, I got Steph.
I got Curry too.
Okay,
This might
this is where stuff's gonna change.
All right, I'm gonna say the first 2 point guards have a chance to be an MVP this next coming up season, and they're the same position.
You talking about
They're
Shy
both
and
young.
Luka?
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, my number 4. These last 2 were so hard.
Okay, on my 5, I have 2. Like I split. I really couldn't choose between it. And it was like if I left them with my honorable mentions, then it just wouldn't add up because it was just so far ahead.
I may have that too. So my number 4, I got Kyrie.
Oh, no, I got Brunson.
See, I left Brunson off my list, but we'll talk about that.
I mean, he averaged almost 40 in the playoffs. Nobody could guard him. He dominated playoffs.
I know Brunson was the hardest one to leave off.
During the season, he averaged a good 25 or more.
The reason I have Kyrie is because I've seen Kyrie dominate, and I know he had a terrible finals, but this dude could average 30 any night. Like, this year, after this season, he might start falling down my list if he doesn't get better, but with the pieces that they built around, I think he could still dominate this year.
All right, from what that is, I don't. If I went off stats, I probably wouldn't have put Brunson up there. But off of watching him play in the playoffs, I mean, he's got to be a top 5. But some people put him at 3. I don't think he's better than Curry.
Yeah, I did not put him as a top 5, but on like my 2 that I left off my list, I put a plus sign next to, and he was one of them that I put a plus because it was so hard to leave him off my list. Number 5, I'm about to get so much hate for this because he barely played last year, but I'm putting John Morant because he only played 9 games last year and he averaged, I think, 25 and 9. And people forget about him because he didn't play last year. And I have a feeling that this year he's going to come out and average around close to 30. Like,
Right. Who was your top?
I had him and Dame.
I had the same thing.
Because it's so hard. It's so hard to leave Dame off this list, but he had a bad year.
But like I said in the video from last week about the 30 teams, I think Dame and Giannis is coming for like a revenge towards her. I mean, they were first round exits last year, so I think they're going to come and try to go the hardest to win a championship.
Yeah.
And then Morant, I mean, he dominates
And he's
You can't-
dominated. Last year, he only played 9 games. In those 9 games, he dominated. But the year before that, he was
I mean,
one
they
of the
were
best players.
top 3 seed in that West, but
And he was
top 4.
Yeah, and he averaged his.
He was the
numbers.
best player on the team.
Yeah, and it was not even close. So my 5 are Luka, Shai, Steph, Kyrie, and Ja, and I have Lillard and Bronson like literally interchangeable with Ja.
I have 4 honorable mentions. So I have Halliburton,
I have
just because off of what he's done last season. I think he's still young. I think he'll, be the same guy he was last year. I got Drew Holiday, which is probably my favorite name on this list, was because every team he goes to, he won a championship.
Yeah.
So it's like he's a winner. You can't have him.
He'll get you a bucket in clutch,
Yeah.
and he's going to D up the best player.
And it's like people talk about him as like he's not a top 5 point guard, but it's like, in my opinion, how could he not be a top 5 point guard if he's won 2 championships in the last 5 years with 2 different teams? And then I got Kyrie, and then you've already talked about Kyrie, and I got Maxey, just because he's one of the most upcoming stars.
Well, I did just like list a bunch of the top point guards in the league. I put Trey Young on there, but
I forgot about Trey.
Trey, to me, he's not a winner. So
Yeah,
if
but I
you're
think
not,
he'll still average. He gets numbers. He gets 24 and like 10.
and that's why I'm not a huge fan of him, because he's a numbers guy. Like, I don't think he'll ever be the best player on a winning team. I had Drew Holiday on there. I just threw LaMelo Ball out there because here in a few years he's going to be up there. I threw Jamal Murray on there because when he's healthy, completely healthy, he is unguardable.
I'm not a big fan of Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I know you're not.
He's a really good player, but I just don't think he's that good.
And I wrote down Fred VanVleet because he is one of the best players on that Houston team. That Houston team's an up-and-coming team.
Yeah.
I had Halliburton, DeJounte Murray, triple-double threat. He had a couple bad years because he was stuck with Trey Young, but now that he gets to actually lead the team, he's not going to be the best player on the team, but he gets to actually be the point guard and lead the Pelicans. I have a feeling that he's only going to average probably like 15 to 17, but he's going to average like 8 or 9 assists and like 7 or 8 rebounds.
And if Giannis and Ingram goes down, he could definitely average 23, maybe more.
You mean, you said Giannis, you meant...
Zion.
Zion, yeah. And then I had Maxey and then De'Aaron Fox. Because the Kings are going to be...
De'Aaron Fox is definitely in that conversation.
Yeah, because the Kings are going to be good this year, and he doesn't have to be the go-to scorer because he has 2. He got DeRozan and he's got Sabonis. So I have a feeling he could average 18, 19, and 10 assists this year. But I mean, I'm not saying that they're a top 5 player. I'm just saying that they're in the discussion. They're in the discussion. But yeah, I think those 7 that we mentioned.
Wait, who?
Luka, Kyrie, Steph, Ja, Shai, Bronson, and Dame. I think those 7 are like...
I'll put Holiday in that conversation too, so I'd have 8.
Yeah. Well, Holiday just doesn't have the numbers, and he's not going to be...
He's won more than anybody besides Curry on this list.
Yeah. And he's not going to be like... He's not the best player on this team.
He's not going to be the number 1
He's
option.
actually the 3rd option.
He's going to get the job done, though.
Yeah. He's going to come to play every single night. All right. So should we move on to the all-time? Oh, I'm struggling with this one.
I probably missed a lot of names. I got a lot of honorable mentions just because I don't know how good they were.
I actually have a tie for 5th on this one. I'm not going to lie.
I do too. Let me change that real quick. All right.
Oh, there's so many names.
But there's one name on here. 2 names on here I want to talk about just because off of what I've heard, like off of other people talking, they persuaded me into putting them in like a top 5 conversation.
Look, I watched so many videos trying to like listen to experts and their top 5s and stuff like
That's
that.
many of their opinions.
And I argued, or my opinion, some of the players I have on my list, I just disagreed with them. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't have that many older players on there because yes, they dominated in their time, but when I think about them compared to now, I don't know how much they would dominate, but...
There's one name on here I might get some hate for. Just cause
actually, I do have a lot of older players on there, but they're not like 60s players.
I got 2 60 players on there. Maybe, I don't know.
But I'll let you start first.
I got Curry 1.
I got Magic 1.
I got Magic 2.
And I got Curry 2. So those 2, I think, are the top 2.
Yeah.
It should be... Because most of the videos I watched, they didn't have Curry up there yet, but most of the videos I watched was before Curry won the last championship. I think in my opinion, because you already have him number one, which Curry's his favorite player of all time. So, but I think that if Curry can win one more, which with this team he has now, I don't think it's going to happen. But if he can win one more, that he could definitely pass Magic. And I don't know what his total points
top
is.
5 already. It's higher than Magic now, but I heard Magic didn't shoot.
Yeah, Magic didn't score. I mean, just a ton, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure Magic has like. I'm pretty sure he kills them on all-time assists. So.
Yeah, and rebounds and stuff like that.
He's also freaking 16. Curry was 16. He's the best player of all time.
But Magic was Magic could do everything.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 3, I'm about to get a ton of hate for. A lot of people have him in their top 10, but they definitely don't have him number 3. And I'm sorry, I know he played a long time, and that's why he holds 2 records, but he holds those records for a reason, and I'm choosing John Stockton. Because
I had a lot of up and unders about him.
A lot of people hate on him, but you know what? He's the all-time leader in assists.
Yeah, that's the reason I was like...
He's the all-time leader in steals. And when you I've listened to podcasts with NBA players that played in the 90s, and they said, who did you hate going against the most? And a lot of them said John Stockton, because they said he's one of the most physical guards, and he's only like 6'2". They said he played physical, he played like dirty type defense, almost like Gary Payton. And so...
He's your number 3?
He's my number 3, because I don't know if his records will ever be broken.
Yeah. I had Oscar, number 3, just because, I mean, based off of what I'm hearing, he had triple-double every single night. And I know he played against trash competition, but, I mean, you can't help that.
I have Oscar.
And I feel like if he did play in, like, the 90s, he wouldn't have a problem. He was a big 6'5" guard, so he could just adapt to the play style.
I have him my number 4.
All right.
So, yeah, same thing. He averaged a triple-double. I know Westbrook did, but he was the first to do it. And he back then there was less teams, and I know they weren't great athletes and all this other kind of stuff, but there was less teams, but there was like more Hall of Famers on each team, and he was still able to go out there and get triple doubles against these Hall of Famer type players. So what is your number 4?
Stockton.
Okay, so I'm surprised you put him on your list.
Yeah.
And number 5, I kept going back and forth.
Tie.
And I do have 2 people listed. One of them is on everybody's top 5 that I'll watch videos on. The other one is on everybody's top 10, but he's not on their top 5. But to me,
I got one that's hated, but I think I have some good reasons. Because I watched a podcast about that they persuaded me, because I didn't even think of him even being in a top 5 conversation. But they persuaded me into putting him on there.
All right, you say yours first then.
Isaiah Thomas.
I got him. He's one of them.
Just because, he dominated the East. He beat Larry Bird, beat Michael Jordan. There was a couple of other names. I don't remember the whole thing, but he was dominating the East, and that's against top 5 players of all time.
He's got 2 championships.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best small point guard of all time because he's only 6 foot.
He was the only guard back in the day that was doing, actually.
Yeah, he was shaking people. Yeah, he was a great defensive player.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has his faults about him walking out the game and having beef and their little dirty plays that they did. It doesn't matter. He's a top 5 point guard of all time.
Y'all talk about Magic going 6-0. What about the other times he didn't go to the finals?
Yeah.
Isaiah was beating up on him.
You mean Michael? You said Magic?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. But, he played against some of the top teams of all time. Those Bulls teams, which he was...
Celtics teams.
The Celtics teams, the Lakers teams.
Magic.
70... I don't know if the
Penny and
76ers... Yeah, no, he was more... That's like... I don't know if he was retired yet, but if he wasn't retired, that was super late in his career. But even when there was games that he got injured and would come back and score 30-something points in those games. So
Dominique Wilkins team, the Hawks team.
Yeah. So who was your tie with?
Jerry West. Just because I went strictly off of stats. They said he averaged 38 points, and as a 6'2" guard, he averaged 38 points.
A lot of people have him in his top 5. He is the logo for a reason. My tie for 5 was Jason Kidd.
Okay.
Because
I don't know a lot about him.
The thing is, if Jason Kidd had more championships, he would be in everybody's top 5.
Yeah.
He never averaged a triple-double, but he was always close to the triple-double range. I'm pretty sure he was on that Mavericks team that won a championship.
With Dirk.
And that was like
He
late
was
in his,
old.
yeah, he didn't shoot a whole lot. But there was games that he would literally have 0 points but have like 12 assists and like 8 rebounds.
See,
So-
one thing I didn't know about him, I thought he was a short point guard.
No,
Then
he's
6'5", so I was
and
like, okay, that
he's-
changed my whole perspective about him.
He's 6'5" and muscular.
Yeah.
Early in his career, he was more of, I'm going to come dunk on you. And then later in his career, he became a shooter. He was always a triple-double threat. He's one of the best passers of all time. And guess what? He's behind Stockton. He's number 2 in assists and steals behind Stockton. So, and now he's one of the best coaches. And he's only like in his young 40s, I think. So, to me, he's top 5.
All right, so he's in my honorable mention.
I have a ton of honorable mentions.
I have 5. I got him, then I got Gary Payton. Just because, I mean, in my opinion, the best guard defender of all time.
I got Gary Payton in my honorable mentions too. I got Jerry West, who you've already said, in my honorable mentions.
So one name I don't like is Steve Nash. Just because after watching games from him back in the day, I wasn't really impressed. But I mean, he won 2 MVPs, so I gotta mention him.
Okay, his MVPs.
And I heard one of the MVPs, he robbed somebody out of it. I think it was Shaq or somebody like
He
that.
robbed Shaq and Tim Duncan. Okay, so Steve Nash is one of the best passers of all time. One of the most efficient shooters of all time. Like, Curry's the greatest shooter.
Yeah.
He might be the most efficient shooter.
Well, he shot less and made, like, he shot like 7 and made 5, 6.
Yeah, like he's definitely in the honorable mentions, but I think he's more down the list than some of the other ones. Yes, he has 2 MVPs, but Shaq could have won one of those. Tim Duncan could have won one of those. Like, he won because his team was number 1 in the league, and they were the most flashy.
Good names. Amari Stoudemire, he would dunk everything.
Amari Stoudemire was on that team.
Sean
Marion was on that team.
Big Tennessee boy.
So he played on some great teams, but he's definitely in the conversation, but not for top 5. He's in the conversation for top 10.
I was talking to some other people, like some of my coaches that I talk to a lot. They were saying that he's like for sure a top 5 pointer of all time. I was like, I don't know.
Who said that? I completely disagree with
Miller was talking good about him.
I mean, he's definitely a great player and one of the smartest players to ever play.
I watched a couple games, like just to like go back and watch some games and see how other people played, and he happened to just be playing in the game, and I wasn't really impressed. So.
And he couldn't play defense, which is a big thing to me too. All right, so here's a name that still plays in the NBA, but he's 100% top 10. Chris Paul.
See, I seen that, but I didn't put him on there because I knew we were going to talk about him.
Yeah, he's 100% top 10.
Smartest point guard of all time.
He's smart. He doesn't have to score 30. He manages the game. He guards.
He controls the game.
Yes, he controls the game. He's a little dirty, but when my teams played against him, I hated him. But after watching him, I respect him and I understand what he does.
And the one thing I like about him, which might not be like a popular opinion, is whenever the Warriors went on their little run, I forgot what finals it was, or one playoff run it was, but it might have been 2017. But whenever Harden had a terrible shooting series against the Warriors,
he had a great
Chris
series.
Paul averaged like 25 and 10 against, I mean, one of the best teams of all time.
Yeah, so Chris Paul is definitely top 10. He's probably closer to top 5, but he's not top 5.
Yeah.
And
They had 6'7" Clay guarding him, 7 foot KD guarding him. He was still getting buckets.
And then we've mentioned Gary Payton. Bro, I mean, he led a team to the finals.
Yeah.
He was, like you said, probably the best on the ball point guard defender of all time. He was scrappy. We got to see him in person, and he was talking stuff this year. He's like in his 50s, and he was running his mouth nonstop.
Hilarious.
But he could get buckets. And when I was watching some of these videos of these ex-NBA players talking about him, all of them had some of them had him in the top 5, but all of them had him way up the list.
Watching The Last Dance made me know how good he was, just off of Michael Jordan's opinions about him.
And even though Michael Jordan laughed at him because Gary said that if he would have guarded him the whole series, they would have won.
Yeah.
Michael was
Which I mean, hey, they might have. They might have got close.
All right, here's a name that you might be surprised I put on there, but he has to be on the list.
I wonder if it's one of the names I got, because I got a really underrated guard on here.
Westbrook.
Oh, no.
Westbrook has to. Dude
Yeah,
averaged triple-double for 3 years.
That's 3 good seasons. What about the other seasons? He was trash.
No, he wasn't. He still averaged like 25 and like 9 or 10. Westbrook has to be on the list. Yes, he's one of the worst shooting point guards I've ever seen in my life, but his athleticism, the stats that he put up, the triple doubles he put up, and I know he's a stat getter. Obviously his career has rapidly declined, but he was never going to be the best player on the championship team. But the things that he did in the game was he changed the game for some point guards, like him and Derrick Rose.
Teaching points how to be aggressive and explosive.
Him and Derrick Rose paved the way for the Ja Morants and people like that. So he has to be. He might. Do I have 10 here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have more than 10, but he's definitely got to be.
I think
either
my
top 10
would
or
be over
close to it.
Tony Parker and Rajon Rondo.
I have Tony Parker as my last.
Just
person.
because he's won, 4 championships? 5?
He's won 4 championships. Don't say this to Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson hates Tony Parker because he feels like Tony Parker cost him a championship. But Tony Parker he came into the league as a 19-year-old, earned the starting spot by the end of his first season, and then won a championship. Like
super fundamental, super skilled.
And when he was in his
played
prime,
for a long time.
Yeah, but when he was in his prime, he was considered the fastest player with the ball.
Yeah.
So he might have had an ugly jump shot, but his mid-range was killer. He developed more of a three-point shot later in his career.
Had the best floater in the game.
Maybe the best floater of all time. And he led the league in points in the paint for like 3 or 4 years in a row as a 6'2", 6'3" point guard. Like, he was so crafty around the basket. His craftiness reminded me of Steve Nash, but he finished with either hand. He was so quick you couldn't guard him, or you couldn't stay in front of him. But
Rajon Rondo put on here specifically because of stats. I seen a couple of stats that he had on the Celtics team. I'm about his Celtics era. He was one of the best point guards in the league.
I forgot about Rondo. I don't know where he stacks up assist-wise all time, but he's got to be up there. He was never a good offensive player, but then all of a sudden he would surprise you and score like 25 points, 30 points a game.
I've seen some stats where he had, pretty sure like he had like a 37-point triple-double. That's another stat where he had like 0 points but like 25 assists.
And he always guarded the best player on the other team because he was extremely long and quick. So yeah, he could definitely. I forgot about him. I'm trying to think of other names.
How many championships have he won? Like 2, 1. I know he's got 1 for sure with the Celtics.
Yeah, I think that might have been the only one.
I don't know.
Unless he was on that was he on that Lakers team that won one in 2020?
He was retired by then. Well, he might have been.
I know that they had like
he retired really recently, didn't he?
I don't know. I know that they had some veterans that like were at the end of the bench. He might not have been on that team. I think he might have only just won the 1 championship. But
I don't know. He won with that Celtics team with KG and Parker.
But when you look at the list, though, I don't think Oscar Robertson won a championship. And then Chris Paul hasn't won one.
He has played against Will Chamberlain, Kareem.
Stockton didn't win one, but he made it to 2, but faced the greatest player of all time in those 2. Steve Nash didn't win. Gary Payton didn't win, but he made it to 1. Westbrook didn't win.
Actually, how many Isaiah Thomas has?
I think he has 2. So Magic has the most. I think Magic has 5.
Curry has 4.
Curry and Tony Parker has 4.
How much Jerry West got?
Who? Jerry? Oh, I don't know about that.
I mean, he was in the days when
he only has
every
1.
year.
No, he only has 1 because they always lost to the Celtics. So I think he has 1 championship. It's crazy.
Really? He played them days where they was in the championship every single year.
Yeah, and they lost the Celtics. I remember the Celtics won like 9 out of 11 championships or some crazy number or something like that. But yeah, like I think that there's names that by the end of their career, Luka, if he continues to do what he's doing for his entire career, if he plays like at 17, 18 years, he's 100% going to be on top 5.
And depending on how much he wins, which Luka's already, I mean, it's kind of clear that he's going to be a top 10 point guard, maybe top 5 of all time. But if Shea, if he wins, I think he should be on that too, just because I mean, he's the most consistent player in the NBA right now.
But Shea's only
30 every
had,
night.
what, 1 or 2, like...
He's only played 4 seasons. He had 2 really good seasons.
And this last year was crazy good.
That's what
So,
I'm saying. If he continues to average 30 and his team's also winning,
yeah.
then I see him being in the top 10. I don't know about top 5, but top 10 for sure.
Well, I think Luka could be like top 3 when he finishes, if he can continue on the path that he's going in.
I feel like his only thing is that he's gotta win. Like, I mean, he's
He
putting
need-
up numbers and he's dominating, but he's just gotta win.
He needs at least to be in the top 3.
I say 3.
I think at least 2 championships. Because you give him 2 championships with the stats that he's going to finish with.
Yeah.
Because my number 3 is Stockton. He'll pass Stockton.
Yeah.
Because he's a great passer, great shooter.
But I think players like Isaiah Thomas is what's gonna hold Luka back, just because
they got
Isaiah's
championships.
won.
Yeah.
And he was
And
holding
then
up for
Isaiah's a
team.
defender, and Luka can't defend anymore. But I don't know.
Which Luka still got time. He's like, what, 25, 26? He's young.
He's super young.
Yeah. And Shea still young. Shea's like 24, 25, so.
Yeah, they still got plenty of time to catch up and be on that list. I mean, the names I mentioned of current players was Dame, but I don't think Dame is
I
ever
think
going
it's
to be
too
on.
late.
Yeah.
Kyrie, I think it's
Kyrie.
too late. He's still
And,
top 10 conversation, in my opinion.
And I had Lucas, Shaw, and Ja, but Ja has a lot.
He's got
a lot of work to do,
potential there. He's got to prove something.
and he's got to stay healthy because he's been injured every single year that he's been in the NBA. But anyways, next week we're doing shooting guards. That one's gonna be a little bit harder because I have for current ones. I don't
That's
have
gonna
a,
be hard.
I don't have a
some names.
big list for current ones, but the all time I think I have like 3 guaranteed, and the rest I'm just lost on because shooting guards might be one of the weaker positions. So that's gonna be next week. Hope y'all enjoy this new podcast that we're doing. Hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. As you see, we're wearing something different in the middle of a video. We recorded the point guard video before the big trade happened. So we're gonna talk about that so we can just insert that into the video. Karl Anthony Towns got traded for Julius Randle. How you say his name?
Dante DiVincenzo, something like that.
And then there was a bunch of other pieces that got put in the trade for, I think, money purposes and stuff like that. But so we're just gonna talk a little bit about the trade and then kind of think if it helps, or talk about if it helps or hurts the teams. We'll start with Minnesota. So you just think it hurts them?
Yeah. I think Randall's not going to buy into the offense, and he's strictly just an ISO player and not a very great consistent scorer. So,
well, the thing with Minnesota is, first off, I think they gave up the wrong person. I think Rudy Gobert was the one that was hurting them, not Karl Anthony Towns. But if Randall can go back to the player he was 2 years ago and be consistent as that player, because he's done that like two or three times in his career where he's played like that, and then next year he's played like trash. If he can go back to that type of player, he could help, because he can be like a Draymond Green distributor type of player and average 20, which could be good for them with Anthony Edwards. But he's just not consistent. And the last 3 or 4 years, Karl Anthony Towns has been like pretty consistent, like 20 points, 9 rebounds. So I don't know. Dante, I feel like that helps him a little bit. But I just think we talked about it on our first video about them being a top 2 or 3 seed.
This hurts a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be at that point. Unless Anthony Edwards just has a MVP type of season, I don't see them being a top 3 seed in the West.
Yeah, I think this brings them down to like a 5 seed or something like that. But, all right, with the Knicks, obviously it helps the Knicks.
Yeah.
They get a big now. OG can play the 4. And now they
get Josh Hart, Bronson, and Bridges.
Yeah. So I think this helps them a lot. Now they got somebody who can play center, but he can also stretch the floor, give Brunson space to work. And plus,
that chemistry, because Dante was a big part of that. And they said there's a Villanova team, but he still played a big part in offense and defense. So.
well, one thing that I do like about it is Bridges isn't much of a shooter, and OG's not like a 3-point threat. So this gives them like space to work because Cat can fall out to the 3-point line and let them work down low.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps because Randall wasn't much of a 3-point shooter either, so it just was clogging up the middle. But this definitely helps the Knicks. I think this boosts the Knicks to maybe a top 4.
I already had a top 4 team just because of the year Brunson.
Oh yeah, and then they brought in all these players, so this puts them in the mix. I still don't think they're as talented as
the top 3 teams.
Yeah, the 76ers, Celtics, and Bucks. But I mean, this definitely helps, and if Cat can learn how to be a leader, which I think it's going to help because Brunson is a leader. Like Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have to be that vocal person because I think that person is Brunson. So
yeah.
So I don't know. So I guess for the Knicks, I think it definitely improves. They still might be like one piece away, like superstar piece away, to being a top 2 seed in the East. But
I hope they surprise me though. Like I hope they do.
I think
exceed more than what they are.
Yeah, I think they will definitely be fun to watch. But one thing that I do hate is this rivalry is going to end between Ja and Cat and both of their dads. You know, Ja's dad, Ja Morant's dad, and Cat's dad would always sit by each other at the games and talk stuff to each other. I don't know if you know. Yeah, they'd always sit next to each other at the games and just talk stuff to each other there at like the entire game. So I'm gonna miss that because now Grizzlies go from playing them 4 times a year to 2 times a year, and there won't be that playoff rivalry that they had a couple years ago. But yeah, we just wanted to insert this in because we'd already made the point guard video, and then this huge trade happened, so we wanted to talk about it.